that kind of place where you really did not have the kind of free speech we do. And many other countries in
Mhm.
Europe, now this is part of what Mark Zuckerberg was talking about. We don't want to become like these countries in Europe where they have rules about what you can say that's going to be censored simply because it's hurting somebody's feelings. You know, you can't say something about Islam because it's Islamophobia. But what if it's true?
Bill Maher went on the Stephen A. Smith show, and surprisingly, whenever Stephen A. Smith asked Bill Maher a specific question, it sparked him to really start to lash out, not just at Stephen A. Smith, but at the entirety of the woke cult and really go after them. Now, later on in the clip, Bill Maher goes back to his old ways and talks about how the right wing is evil for being religious and believing in Christianity and stuff, which is it just par for the course for Bill Maher, but at least there's a part in here where he really does go after the woke left and he goes after people with the same ideology as Stephen A. Smith. Let's get into this clip here where Bill Maher absolutely shreds the woke left.
We're finding out now, as each week rolls by, more and more, it's pretty obvious that COVID, the origin of it was the lab. I think in 50
Mm.
years, when people look back, they'll say, wait a second, there was a lab in Wuhan where the disease started that was studying this disease and using gain of function research on it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were debating whether this was the cause of it. Now, it could have been the
Mm.
wet markets. Absolutely. We don't know for sure. But the fact that we weren't even allowed to discuss that it was coming from a lab, which again, it probably was now, we know, that should
Mm-hmm.
tell you all you need to know. The fact that Justin Trudeau just stepped down in Canada, I mean, this guy had a very
That's
high
right.
approval rating 5 years ago, and he left really very unpopular because Canada became that kind of place where you really did not have the kind of free speech we do. And many other countries in
Mm-hmm.
Europe, now this is part of what Mark Zuckerberg was talking about. We don't want to become like these countries in Europe where they have rules about what you can say that's going to be censored simply because it's hurting somebody's feelings. You know, you can't say something about Islam because it's Islamophobia. But what if it's true? You know, we just had
Mm-hmm.
a terrible incident in New Orleans that was a jihadist attack. Um, we want to be able to speak about that plainly and honestly without worrying somebody's going to say, don't say that because it's not all Muslims. Well, no one's saying it's all Muslims. We're saying we need to discuss about this honestly and openly and patently. And you can't do that if somebody's looking over your shoulder.
You know, I 100% agree. Bill Maher is completely correct right here, but I wish he would be consistent across the board with this take. You should be able to criticize certain groups of people, you know, certain bad apples in certain groups of people, but it does seem like there are some groups of people, and you know, Islam could be one of them. But also, I think there's some other groups of people, you know, I can't even say who they are, but you probably know who I'm talking about, that are just not able to be criticized at all. And it's like, I'll just use this as an example. I would love to see Bill Maher to say this about certain races, let's say. Because I guarantee Bill Maher, if asked about, you know, the crime rates being higher in the black community, for instance, than any other race, I wonder if he would give the same take that, oh, we should be able to criticize that. You know, we should be able to recognize that correlation and say, hey, this might be a problem here. Obviously, it's not all black people. You know, it's that's very obvious. Everybody knows that. We don't have to say that. You don't have to virtue signal like that. But there can still be a problem. If the statistics say there's a problem, there's probably a problem regardless of what your emotions say about it. You know, I would be curious to see if he'd be able to recognize that there is an issue like that in other groups of people, other races, other religions, things like that. Because it seems like that's kind of the easy way out, you know, to criticize Islam when there's a lot of, I think, obviously there is some problems within Islam, right? Like, obviously there have been multiple terrorist attacks that are from Islamic extremists, at least allegedly. That's the story that we're being told. I don't want to be that kind of guy, but we don't even know it's true or not anymore. You know, it's really sad, but let's just take it at face value and say that is the truth. Okay, we should be able to 100% discuss that that is an issue. There seems to be some sort of correlation there that maybe we should look into a bit and not feel bad about looking into. But the same thing goes for so many other races, so many other religions, so many other instances that I'd be shocked if Bill Maher was actually willing to identify and to call out on a show like he's doing right now on Stephen A. Smith's show. I just don't see it happening. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong, though.
And saying, well, this is going to hurt somebody's feelings. Okay, feelings are not as important as the First Amendment.
Fair enough. And it's one of the things that people allude to and complain about, as you have, about the left because of woke culture. With that being said, one would ask Bill Maher, in this day and age, why would you still call yourself a liberal or a Democrat as opposed to an independent, considering how you thinking and how polar opposite that appears to be to what's transpired with the Democratic Party? Because I'm reading this article from the Wall Street Journal, and essentially, to paraphrase, not your exact words, but you were talking about, what you still consider yourself, but that party is not the party that I've been looking at in recent memory.
Yeah, well, I've always been an independent. I mean, I never threw in with the Democrats because I always knew they'd disappoint me.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
At some point. But
I've joined your party. I've joined your party.
Yeah, but old school liberal, yes. I mean, that's, I think, what I always was and always will be. As I say in the special, the people who are saying, oh, you're a Republican now. No, I'm not a Republican, and I never will be a Republican for all the reasons I haven't been. They're too religious. They're fiscal hypocrites who think it's awful when America spends money it doesn't have, except when they're in office, and then it's always perfectly okay. They're in denial about racism. They're in denial about the environment. They're always blaming the underprivileged when they should be blaming the overprivileged. And then they added to that shitty mixtape, they don't believe in democracy anymore. And they threw their lot in with a sociopath named Donald Trump.
It's so funny, man. It's so funny that's still the thing that we're talking about. And it's also funny that they always use the same exact talking points. Like Bill Maher, it's always the same thing. Like Cenk Uygur does the same thing. David Pakman does the same thing. They know that anytime you criticize the left wing, like Bill Maher just did here, anytime you criticize the left wing, you got to go back and virtue signal a little bit so that your audience doesn't completely hate you. So they always use the same talking points to do that. It's always the same one. Oh, they're too religious. They're radically religious. It's like, oh my God, the horror. You're a Christian. It's so bad. Or threat to democracy. They elected the threat to democracy in Donald Trump. Like, please explain to me how. Honestly, I don't even want you to explain to me how. It doesn't matter anymore. He won, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like at this point, we don't have to argue with these people. Just ignore them. Like that, it's a ridiculous statement that's being made. Do you really think that the majority of Americans, the citizens of the United States of America, the party, like the country that loves free speech and freedom and the democratic republic that we have, more people would vote for him than not if he was actually a threat to democracy? Like, we all know that that's just BS. But they always have to go back to their little virtue signal talking points to make sure that their audience doesn't completely leave them and hate them forever. They're like, they want to criticize the left because they understand that's where the market's going, but they also know that there's a ton of leftists that still watch them, and if you criticize the left even a little bit, they get pissed off. So they're like, let me course correct a little bit and just go back to the same old talking points that I've been saying and everybody else has been telling me I should say for the last 4 years, or really 8 years at this point.
Who thinks that elections only count when they win. So they have a sizable lead in being the more threatening party, I think, to this country. But that doesn't mean I'm going to hold my tongue about what I think is wrong about the left. And I don't. And there's a lot. And old school liberal, I could give you so many examples. It's a very big part of the show where I'm talking about the fact that people somehow think that wokeness is an extension of liberalism, when very often it's the opposite of liberalism. I mean, just like the Israel situation, the liberal position has always been a two-state solution. I still think that's the solution. Well, that's not the position of the woke. They want from the river to the sea. So you can have that position, but don't tell me that's the liberal position. The river to the sea does not mean a two-state solution. It means you want all of it for the Palestinians. That's fine. That's your position. It's not the liberal position. I haven't changed. You have.
Is anyone else seeing this, your stand-up comedy special?
No, nobody's watching that, I don't think. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you guys think about what Bill Maher is saying. He's going after the left. You could tell that all these people understand where the tide is going, you know, what direction the market is going in, where the money's going to be. You can see all these businessmen are starting to figure that out, but he's just like a little bit too scared to go all the way. And I think Bill Maher's been saying this for a while. He's saying that he's staying a classic liberal, but let's be real, dude. Like 2020 to 2022, Bill Maher was not criticizing the left hardly at all. Like he was only going after the right. And I know what he would say in response to that, and that in that time period, the right wing was way more unhinged than the left wing. That's just not the truth. The reality is, because Donald Trump was president, it was a lot more profitable to attack the right wing because there's a lot more eyeballs on it. And, you know, it's easy to criticize the current person, right? Because most people's lives in America, day to day, they don't really enjoy it very much. And it's really easy to just outsource your misery to someone who is, you know, has power, like Donald Trump or Joe Biden. So whoever's currently in office, it's real easy to just blame them for why your life is miserable, for why your wife hates you, and, you know, all that stuff. It's really easy. So whoever is currently in office, it's really good for the other side, you know, in terms of like these news outlets and news stations and stuff like that. They want the other side to win because then they get to be more profitable for the next 4 years because they get to go complain about how horrible he is. That's how it works. And so the 2 years, 2020 to 2022, honestly, 2018 to 2022, Bill Maher was only criticizing the right wing. But now all of a sudden he starts to criticize the left, but he has to throw in some jabs to the right too, so that his entire audience doesn't leave him behind. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you guys think about Bill Maher going on Stephen A. Smith's show and really going after the woke left here. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this whole Bill Maher and Stephen A. Smith situation.